roundtable discussion on COP30 China Pavilion, brought to you by CGTN. I'm your host, Ji from CGTN. Well, today we will explore how green technology serves not only as a vital tool for addressing climate change, but also as a powerful driver for economic growth, job creation, and international cooperation. And throughout the session, we will hear valuable insights from the representatives of government, media, business, think tanks, and the United Nations. Okay, guys, at this time, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished panelists joining us for today's roundtable. First, a warm welcome to Mr. Michael Adelia, Senior Program Officer from the Unitar Division for Prosperity. Welcome. And next, we have Mr. Jia Jiabin, a Senior Commentator from CGTN. Welcome, Jiabin. And joining us is Ms. Yang Xia, International General Manager of Coran. Welcome. And we also extend a welcome to Mr. Lucas Nassar Souza, Founder and Executive Director at the Cities Laboratory. Welcome. And finally, welcome to Mr. Walter De Simone, Manager of Climate Policy Institutions and Law at the Institute for Climate and Society, ICS. And let's give a warm round of applause to welcome all of our distinguished guests. Welcome again. And at this time, I would like to invite your attention to the screens for two special video messages. And the first one comes from Mr. Zhang Zhi, member of Shenzhen Longhua District Standing Committee. Let's take a look.
尊敬的各位嘉宾、女士们、先生们，大家好！非常荣幸在本次 COP30 中国角城市日与各位交流，共同探讨绿色科技如何驱动城市经济增长，创造就业并促进国际合作。作为国家可持续发展议程创新示范区，深圳将绿色低碳理念全面融入城市发展，经济社会转型不断加速，绿色科技正成为深圳高质量发展的核心引擎。这片创新沃土不仅培育了比亚迪、华为等具有全球影响力的企业，更在新能源、节能环保等领域形成了完整的产业生态，将绿色动能转化为实实在在的经济增长和民生改善。国际合作是城市经济繁荣和可持续发展的重要途径。作为深圳年轻的行政区，龙华区自2017年正式成立以来，始终以开放姿态链接全球资源。我们打造了国际合作中心，携手联合国开发计划署、联合国人居署、联合国训练研究所等国际组织，链接全球超500家政府机构、高校和商协会，服务2万多家制造业企业。通过技术交流、能力建设和项目对接，为中小微企业发展注入绿色动能和国际资源。我们正通过持续加强国际合作，构建开放创新的生态体系，让本土的绿色技术、产品与服务与全球市场能够彼此成就，同频共振。明年 APEC 将迎来中国时间，我们诚挚邀请大家来到深圳，来到龙华，期待与各国伙伴携手，建立更加务实包容的国际合作机制，共同建设更加绿色、韧性、可持续的未来城市。谢谢。
Well, thank you, Mr. Zhang. And now let's continue with another video address from Mr. Dong Haitao, Director of the Prosperity Alliance Shenzhen at the Greater Bay Area. Your attention to the screen, please.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Dong Haitao, Director of the United Nations Institute for Training and Research Prosperity Alliance, Shenzhen Greater Bay Area. It's a great honor to co-host this roundtable, Green Technology Leading Urban Prosperity and a Sustainable Future, and to join you here in Brazil to discuss our shared future. Green technology is not only a critical pathway to carbon neutrality, but also a powerful new engine for high-quality urban development. Dedicated to green innovation, Shenzhen is charting a practical course that demonstrates green growth in action. As an international education and sustainable development innovation platform, In the Greater Bay Area, our Shenzhen Institute is committed to integrating green technology with capacity building, leveraging UNITA's global network and Shenzhen's innovation advantages. We are building an innovation ecosystem that localizes global experience and internationalizes local practice through high-level forums, capacity building programs, and cross-border collaboration. Shenzhen will host the next APEC Economic Leaders Meeting in November 2026. We warmly welcome guests from all over the world together in this beautiful and energetic Chinese city and jointly explore forward-looking solutions for sustainable urban development. We look forward to working hand in hand with all of you to build a prosperous future for green and environmentally friendly cities. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Dong, for that insightful message. And following that idea, I have a question for you, Mr. Adalia. How do you think Shenzhen's experience can inspire cities across the global south, in your opinion?
Eugene, and thank you for CGTN for the invitation to be here. The Shenzhen story is remarkable in terms of how people, governance, and policy translate into action, and where Shenzhen is starting as a hub for manufacturing, translating itself into something that is worth green energy, digital innovation, and other policies that relate to sustainable development. Now, it's not by coincidence that UNITAR has selected Shenzhen as one of our centers of our Prosperity Alliance. We have 4 in China: Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Shenzhen. And as Mr. Dong said, who is also representing our Prosperity Alliance Shenzhen, and he also represents the China International Personal Training Development Organization. What is the inspiration that we can pick from Shenzhen is something that the green transition is part of the economic strategy and not as a choice between growth and sustainability. So now that Shenzhen is now a living laboratory of sustainable development, and how it's showcased when governments invest on capacity development and like what they're doing and support them, also on governance and other green technologies, it sort of brings a fast-moving change in a city that balances prosperity and the planet. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that insightful contributions. Now let's move into our first thematic discussion. How can green technology drive urban economic prosperity? As we know, green technologies is emerging as a new engine for urban growth, and it delivers not just a low carbon transition, but also new industrial ecosystems and high quality jobs. And first, I would like to invite Ms. Yang Xia to share her thoughts. Well, Ms. Yang Xia, in your view, which green technologies or industries hold the greatest potential to drive both decarbonization and economic returns? And could you share also a concrete example of how these technologies contribute to job creation and or enhance export competitiveness?
Thank you for your question. Absolutely, we fully agree that the carbon reduction and economic growth is very important factors of the union's ESG goals. And for our quarry, firstly, we have the coal gasification business, which we will utilize the fuel efficiency and convenience and carbon reduction for the direct combustion, combined with the CCUS technology. It forms a nearly zero coal chemical system. Yeah, and our biomass gasification utilize the agriculture, forestry, and municipal waste, which are the carbon neutral energy resource, converted into the syngas and hydrogen and or liquid fuel. So it creates dual benefits, both to have the energy recovery and also realize the carbon reduction. So in China, the same as the other countries all over the world, they have such kind of modern and high efficiency technology for co-gasification and co-chemical and biomass gasification projects. We see these projects will boost the industrial chain. For example, the the chemical materials and the equipment manufacturing and the engineering constructions, which will create numbers of regional jobs. Yeah. Secondly, they are exploring the use of the hydrogen. You know that many countries like China, Germany, Japan, and Australia, the same as the other countries all over the world, they have made the hydrogen as their national strategies. And for our Korean, we have two hydrogen storage solutions. One is that the hydrogen react with iron oxide to store the hydrogen solution. For this solution, it has the deep and high efficiency to storage hydrogen and also has the possibility to scale up. Another solution is that we have the solution of metal hydride. For this solution, it is easier to scale up. So certainly, you know that from the technical part, now it's possible to convert the CO2 into the high value chemicals like such as methane, ethylene, and the formic acid, and also carbonates. So this will help us to not only to utilize the CO2 to meet the carbon emission and also to produce the chemicals to create value. So this is in emerging industry fields. Our Korean is planning to invest in research and developing the new technology of carbon dioxide to the fuels. So they are also have the planning to do the industrial demonstration. With the effective international cooperation, we think that through the carbon reduction to realize the carbon emission to meet the carbon emission peak and the carbon neutrality goals. And at the same time, we will have the chemical products to create a value. In considering the international tax and seek for the green financial approach, we believe that for the CO2 utilization, it will be the new growth point for the carbon economic in the very near future. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Yang Xia. Well, now let's hear from Mr. Lucas Sousa. We know your city's laboratory initiative promotes sustainable urban development in the Amazon region. And could you share an example of a green project and explain how it has benefited both the local economy and the community, please?
Thank you for your question. I must say, first of all, that I am from Belém. I was born and raised here, and I'm a city planner. And when we're talking about green cities, I truly believe that green technology is truly transformative when it's combined with traditional, local, and ancestral knowledge. Let's take, for example, the sponge cities that comes from China. The Chinese created the concept of sponge cities, deeply rooted in ancestral knowledge. Like, it shows us what we can learn, what innovation can learn when it's connected to ancient and traditional knowledge and building cities with nature, with water, and not against it. So this is, for us, a main contribution from the Chinese urban planning to the whole planet. And in the Amazon is not that entirely different. We know now that indigenous communities, before the Europeans arrived, lived here in between 8 to 10 million people in the Middle Ages, with a constellation of cities of 10, 20, even 30,000 people living in these cities. These cities contributed to the biodiversity that we have in the Amazonian rainforest. So the Amazonian is the most biodiverse forest in the planet, and this is not natural. This is man-made. This is a product of engineering. So we have also something that can relate to and connect to sponge city technologies and planning. So those cities contributed to that, but we don't have only ancestral or examples in the past. We have also contemporary examples that are very, very interesting for us. We have a city in the west coast of the Marajó Island, in the mouth of the Amazon River, that is called Afuá. The city is entirely built on tilts over the water, already adapted, already ancestral traditional knowledge, and it's the Brazil in which we have the most proportion of people moving by bikes. So these solutions in China, in the Amazon, are not only low carbon, they are rooted and respectful to the territory, to culture, and they are inclusive. So what I believe is that when we combine these insights that ancestral knowledge can bring to us, to green technologies like digital technologies for planning, reusable energy, nature-based infrastructure, that's when we unlock a whole different new urban economy. So that's where I believe the future lies. And this coalition, this alliance in between technology, people, and nature for sustainable growth, for prosperity.
Well, thank you. Very interesting story from the city's laboratory. Well, now let's come back to Mr. Adalia. From Unitar's perspective, how can capacity building help cities turn green technology into concrete opportunities for job creation and skills development? And would you say this is also a key focus for the UN in promoting sustainable development?
Thank you. The question on capacity development is at the heart of what UNITAR, the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, does, and which I represent. But when we talk about capacity development, I think I'll pick up on what you have said. Indigenous knowledge is very important, and it's part of the innovation that we also take into consideration as part of our training design, and how we co-develop, co-design, and capturing the learnings from, for example, from China, from Shenzhen, or from the Amazon. How can we capture that? And as we measure the impact that it's creating, translate that into improving our curriculum design. That's one thing that I really want to highlight, because it's evolving nature of training is also taking into consideration what are the new ways of learning. I like to take that approach, and I would very much would find ways to collaborate, because there's a lot to learn from that perspective. Moving forward, it's in the traditional sense of when we say green energy, it's not just about installing solar panels. But at UNITAR, we take into consideration how is it translating into the communities, into something like employability. How is it translating to livelihood development? How can the local community gain for it, drive the design, drive the implementation, and drive the sustainability of whatever initiatives taking place in their communities? Very important. Second level, we also like to consider the institutional capacity, because there are institutions to help sustain, scale the knowledge that needs to happen, connect with the industries and what's working and what's not working. It's very important that we do it on the learning phase as well as on the dissemination phase. At UNITAR, we do cover all aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals, and in 2024, we managed to train 500,000 across whole 196 UN. So this question is very much part of what we do. Thank you.
Okay, now I would like to move into our second thematic discussion, cooperation and capacity building, how to make the green technology more inclusive and sustainable. To fully harness green technology for economic and social prosperity, collaboration and capacity building are essential. And in this session, we will explore public-private partnerships, South-South cooperation, and communication strategies, examining how partnerships can transform innovation into real-world impact. And first to Mr. Walter DeSimone, at the local government level in Brazil, which PPP mechanism have proven most effective in attracting private investment for green projects? And how do these mechanisms ensure a balance between financial returns and sustainability objectives?
Thank you very much for your question, and thank you for the invitation to being here with this panel. PPPs have been widely used in Brazil to help implement a lot of urban changes, but only recently we've been using it to look into climate change as a piece of it. Brazil has had very successful PPPs on recovering urban areas, which is inherently a part of the climate discussion. But more and more PPPs have been used to look at topics such as public lighting, electrification of bus fleets. And now there's a large part of the debate that looks into nature-based solutions and how can public-private partnerships be used to help fill a historical gap that we have in a lot of problems in Brazil, including the lack of sanitation and waste structures, which is a part of the climate debate that we cannot and we must not forget, because that's where most of the local benefits would probably come from when bridging the gap. That being said, I think we need to look at the PPPs from a broader perspective and understand exactly how we need to shape them so it's properly connected to climate action, how it lands in a local government, and how it can attract proper financing. So one of the challenges that we have in Brazil is that Brazil is a federation, like many other South-South countries that we talk about. We have states, just like provinces that a lot of other countries have, like Mexico, China, and India. So there's a need to start connecting the overall climate target that Brazil has and the overall Brazil climate plan has to what states and municipalities need to do to help meet those targets. And I mention that only because one of the biggest next steps that we need to take to leverage finance is good governance. I think that one point that has been raised in many roundtables and discussions here is that good governance is the key to building trust and to leveraging money, to getting finance into the right places. And we must ensure that the governance connects the targets, the tons of CO2 or the resilience and adaptation indicators, to where is that money going to go? But it's good that we're talking about PPPs because PPPs rely on something that countries like China have a lot of experience with, and I think we have a lot to learn about, which is contracts. The basis of a good PPP is a very solid contract between the state, private sector on what is going to be delivered. Brazil is often locked in a debate between should something be privatized or something be provided by the government, by the state. And it's a fair debate because the private sector will naturally look into being more efficient because it wants to increase its profits. And the state would often look into how can we maximize the benefits to the local population. So the PPPs provides us with a very interesting structure in which we can have the state bureaucrats and the state power involved into ensuring that the benefits are going to be delivered. And with a good enough contract, you can have the private sector bringing money in and looking into things like concessions as well and bringing a high quality product being delivered. Now, the challenge is, what indicators are we going to put into those PPPs? What are the climate indicators that we're going to ensure that we can bring these ideas across the board and actually leverage proper climate finance to deliver proper climate results? And just to move with the conversation so we can have a debate about it, one thing that I think is important is that climate PPPs should not be about climate topics. It should be about every topic. So the biggest question is that how can we include climate change indicators in every PPP that is being carried out and done? Because we need to reduce CO2 in basically everything that is a PPP being done, whether it is buildings and infrastructure. And the second part of it is we need to build resilience. So how can we start including resilience and mitigation indicators across the PPPs that are being done across the board? And my last point is, and I think it connects a bit with what you said, is how can we ensure Brazil has 5,700 municipalities. Most of them have less than 20,000 people. We have a deep lack of technical knowledge on how to properly plan and monitor structural projects for cities. Out of these 5,700 cities, 180 of them, the better structured ones, are the ones that capture 75 to 80% of all the finance available for implementing local projects. We need to change that. And we're not going to be able to change that unless we also build capacity at a local level with the state bureaucrats and with the state planners, so we can ensure that the money arrives where it needs to go and the projects are properly implemented following the mitigation and the resilience indicators that we need to develop.
Well, thank you. Very interesting points of view from Mr. Walter DeSimone. And next, Mr. Jia Jiabing, my colleague from CGTN. From the perspective of international communication, what type of narrative is most effective in conveying that the green economy is not a cost, but a genuine opportunity for growth?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think we have to recognize that for a long time, people saw going green as huge and painful tax on economy, just like slamming the fresh brakes on the progress. But now I think we are making up the fact that the green economy is basically the main highway of fourth industrial revolution. So I think it goes far beyond the emission reduction. It's really a historic opportunity to create new trade, to open new markets, and to generate new jobs. So this is something that we have seen in China. I think way back to the year 2014, the President Xi Jinping put it perfectly. He said, protecting environmental is protecting productivity, and improving environment is growing productivity. So during the past 10 years, that single idea has been a roadmap for the development of China. So what we have seen, China has proactively embraced change for logical advantages into development strengths. Let's take solar energy industry as an example. In 2013, China's solar power generation was just 8.4 billion kilowatt hours. By 2024, almost 100 times that. So we can see that's not only helping the global environmental protection, it's a real opportunity for China. So what we have to see is that the massive demand kicked off a wave of tech breakthroughs and built a solid supply chain that put China in the top of the world in the solar industry. So the same story happens in in electric cars and in batteries. So all of these, most that growing green is not slowing us down. In fact, the countries and the companies who they are the ones who end up running the show, these new global games. So back to the question, what the media should do to construct narratives to transform this, we say, outdated notion that the green economy means enormous costs. I think it's simple. We have seen, let's tell stories that happen in the world, because the best stories come from a real life. So when a green job are putting foods on table, when a cool new tech is changing our life, making our life better, people will get it on their own. They believe that this is not a sacrifice we are forcing to, it's a better future we choosing to get. So what should we tell these stories, amazing stories that will help us to, or maybe this is thing we can do to contribute for the construction of the beautiful world. Thank you.
Thank you, Jiabing. Very good point of view. Okay, now let's come back to Mr. Adelia once more. And my question is, how does Unitar plan to systemize these successful models into a replicable green prosperity model through South-South cooperation and international media communication going forward?
Thank you. In my opinion, there are three drivers that would help us replicate. Number one is continuing with the capacity development, capacity building, learning from what works in the Amazon, for example, and bringing that as part of our training design. That's number one. Number two is collaboration, cooperation. UNITAR cannot do it alone. We have to collaborate. We have to bring the scale, but scale doesn't mean that we just need to have a one-size-fits-all approach. We have to co-design, co-develop what works in a specific environment, specific context. At the same time, we have to have the understanding that they have the buy-in of what's happening within their community. That's the second layer. And the third dimension I would like to say is that communication. There's a lot of good work happening, but it's not going through beyond the noise. For example, what is indigenous knowledge that's happening in the Amazon? Are we not hearing that beyond that could be applicable in other areas? So the work of communication, including the media, CGTN, for example, you have the role as well to bring the good stories, can bring it deeper, wider, and faster across societies, making sure that policymakers would learn from it, the youth would also get the inspiration from it, and of course the industry will also understand what works and what should be adjusted. In the end, the green transition should become a positive human development story. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before we conclude, let me highlight the key consensus points that we made from today's dialogue. Green technologies is emerging as a new energy for urban prosperity, and with public-private partnerships as the catalyst and capacity building as the foundation, we can transform the path of sustainability into a path of shared prosperity. Well, thank you again to all our distinguished panelists for coming. And that concludes our roundtable discussion on COP30 China Pavilion. Thank you very much.